president of a suicide prevention and mental health awareness organization. I work with like-minded people to reduce the stigma around these topics. The stigma often keeps individuals from seeking treatment for mental illness and in turn can contribute to suicide. This became a reality for me when my best friend died by suicide after enduring her long but silent battle with mental illness. After a suicide, conversation is sparse, grieving is cut short, blame is placed, and the education gap becomes extremely evident. The injustice surrounding this issue became painfully obvious and something I couldn't ignore. Activism began the second I decided to take action towards changing the culture around suicide. Activism began when I educated myself about the injustice of how people treat people with mental illness. Activism began when I surrounded myself with people who felt empowered to affect change. And activism began when I channeled my passion and frustration into changing the stigma around this topic. Teens provide a powerful perspective in addressing the injustices that exist in the culture we grew up in. Access to information from a young age has provided us with the ability to be well informed. Generation Z is the first generation that has had access to internet our entire lives. One of the most influential catalysts to my activism was this abundant access to information and people with divergent beliefs. Before my loss, I knew almost nothing about suicide and mental illness, but through research, I learned that mental illness is a common contributing factor to suicide, and met one of my most influential mentors through the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention website. Without these resources, I would have never been able to gain the knowledge and awareness needed to become a mental health advocate. However, even more influential than internet access was our social reform culture. We live in a time of social revolution. In 2015, same-sex marriage was legalized after decades of struggling for equality. And in 2017, the Me Too movement began, and sexual harassment reform was brought to light. As I grew up watching movements like these, I learned to believe that change is possible, and that we live in a world where people can and should be treated fairly and equally. This was such a powerful thing in my life. Another strength of teens is our mob mentality. And I know what you're thinking. What did she just say? Mob mentality is a strength? And yes, though it's often a driver of negative, destructive action, that power can be channeled for good, and has been. This mentality allows for social movements to grow quickly and with ease. Take the March for Our Lives movement. In a mere month and a half, the teens from Parkland gained the support of over 200,000 protesters. Now, I'm not promising that every time you put an idea out there, a whole bunch of teens are going to support and follow it. But with the right circumstances and a significant group of influential people, you may just be able to gain traction because of our nature to follow the next big trend. It's hard for me to explain the profound impact that activism has had on my life. I was transformed from a powerless 15-year-old girl who missed her best friend and saw no hope in the world to a powerful and determined force for change. Activism healed me. Activism channeled my anger for good. Activism gave me a purpose. Not only did it help me grieve my loss, but it also provided me with numerous and valuable skills and experiences that have shaped the person I am today. I now know how to lead a meeting with a board of directors, how to manage volunteers, and I've even had my first unpleasant interaction with an adult coworker. The experiences a teen gains through activism are nothing like any other experiences you could have in your first 18 years of life. And I've been lucky enough to live in a community where support was abundant and minds were open to change. Communities also are made better when teens engage actively in the process of change. By addressing injustices, teens strengthen our communities and promote a socially responsible culture. They challenge other community members to become a part of positive social change. Because if they don't, let's face it, we are really making them look bad. In this politically divisive time, youth all over the country are modeling a positive way to affect change. Social movements such as Black Lives Matter, March for Our Lives, and Dreamers all have significant youth leadership that are engaging in political advocacy and peaceful protest. Youth activism has a cyclical effect. Teen activists perpetuate the social reform culture, which will then teach the next generation that change is needed and possible, and the cycle continues. When looking to the future, today's activism transforms us into the community leaders and good citizens of tomorrow. Now, I hope that what I've just said to you has left you with the following question. What can I do to be a part of this movement? And although the idea I'm trying to promote is meant to be youth-led, adults play a vital role. Adults, I challenge you to be a resource. You know much more than we do about organizing people, money, and logistics. Share this with us. Your experiences can answer many questions and maybe activists may have. I like to joke with my mentor, who's actually here today, about how she ruined me because she taught me so much about liability and risk that now when I have any new idea, the first thing that pops into my brain is, can we do that? Does our insurance cover that? Next, encourage a non-traditional path. Teens are pressured to focus solely on academics and school activities. If our passions don't fall into this traditional path, we aren't encouraged to pursue them. So challenge us to follow our passions for social justice. We may be hesitant at first to sway from the norm. Be upfront about difficulty and risk. As the adult with experience and understanding of hard work, it is your responsibility to prepare us for the challenges ahead. Help us to understand that there will be hours of volunteering and paperwork and significant financial risk. But with your patient and honest guidance, we can do it. And finally, and most importantly, believe in our ideas and abilities. This is by far your most important role. My activism was nurtured by the important adults who believed in me. When I told my parents and my future mentor that I wanted to organize a suicide prevention concert, they didn't say, Maeve, that's crazy. That's impossible. You don't know how. Instead, they offered me just enough guidance and support to grow the confidence I needed to thrive as a youth activist. So adults, I challenge you to believe in us and our abilities. This is the best thing you can do to promote youth activism in your community. It is simple, but so powerful. And now on to my message for youth. As the human rights activist and Nobel Peace Prize winner Desmond Tutu once said, if you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have just chosen the side of the oppressor. If an elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse, and you say that you are neutral, the mouse will not appreciate your neutrality. This perfectly captures the value of activism. Neutrality is not good enough. When teens witness or experience an injustice, it is our responsibility to take action towards change. If we all do our part, whether big or small, the world will slowly become a better place. So how? Believe in yourself. And okay, yes, I get it, it's cliche, but activism cannot happen without believing in yourself. Believe in your desire for change. Believe in your ability to do things you may have never done before. Believe in your strength and determination. And finally, believe in your power to influence change. Don't be afraid to speak out. This can be really scary. I can remember the first time I spoke out about suicide like it was yesterday. One of my friends said, "Ugh, I'm gonna kill myself," as a way to show how she felt about an exam. I told her it was bad to make light of a serious issue by turning it into a joke. This was a terrifying moment. I had to decide whether I was going to respond to that sick feeling in my stomach and say something, or just say nothing at all. Speaking out is hard, but collectively, a lot of little moments like this one can change our culture. Find a mentor. One of the most vital aspects of youth activism is mentorship. We don't know how to organize an event or start a social movement, but we shouldn't be expected to. Seek the support and knowledge of someone who will support and validate your ideas and abilities and answer questions patiently. We are never alone in our desire for change, so find others who value the same social progress and learn from each other. Take a non-traditional path. In today's culture, teens are pressured to fit into a specific mold, focusing solely on our academics and school activities. We're expected to be perfect students, standout athletes, popular with our peers, and talented musicians. Our peers don't always relate to sending emails or organizing volunteer schedules, or understand why we aren't in school because of a meeting or an interview. Although it hasn't been a traditional path, leading a suicide prevention organization has been more interesting and rewarding than any number of likes I've gotten on an Instagram post, or any 100% I've gotten on a test. Join together with others. As one of the United States' first activists once said, not in numbers, but in unity that our great strength lies. Once I started discussing an awareness concert with a group of my friends, I felt empowered and I was eager to start affecting change. Find others who value the same change as you do, because embarking on an activist journey is not a path that should be taken alone. And finally, use your assets. I'm talking about the power of youth activism. We have so much to bring to the process of change. As I said before, Generation Z has so much information at our fingertips. We believe in the possibility of change because of the influence of our social reform culture. It is no secret that our generation has social media down to a science. That is a vital skill in marketing a nonprofit organization or social movement. And finally, we have the powerful potential to gain the support of our peers because of the mob mentality that exists in teen culture. We must use all of these assets to take action towards change, because we can do it, and I believe we have a responsibility to do so. Every day, every one of us experiences or witnesses an injustice. And 99% of the time, we choose the easiest option, which is to look the other way and move on with our busy lives. We rationalize by telling ourselves, oh, that doesn't affect me, or that's just the way it is. However, activism begins the second we decide to act. Teens like me are no different. But how do we start in addressing that injustice? First, we must align ourselves with others who recognize the injustice and value the need for change. There is nothing more powerful than joining together for a common goal. Next, we must introduce the idea that opposes current belief. By speaking out, we open up an opportunity that wasn't there before to alter the view of another person. Even the slightest bit counts. And finally, we must be steadfast and unrelenting in our pursuit of justice, because change never happens overnight, but with great persistence and patience is possible. Thank you.